Alright, I have a lot of points I'd like to get through. I'm going to start with the biggest and baddest, the one you've heard me talk about before, window theory. Now, probably eight or nine videos back, I talked about making a Hanzo guide, like a more in-depth one, and then I also mentioned something called window theory, and some of you guys were like, well, what in the world is window theory? What does that even mean? Well, now is the time I get to explain window theory. So, this theory is something I've pretty much developed only while playing Hanzo. And the theory essentially is windows in Overwatch equal success with Hanzo. I'm literally talking about windows in these maps. I'll roll some footage right here of the different windows on some of the maps. These windows can be exploited and abused. These windows will earn you free picks as Hanzo, and you 100% should be playing with them and in them. Wow, that sounded disgusting. Every single match is Hanzo. And there are two big reasons why window theory is, or just why windows in general are so overpowered when it comes to Hanzo. Number one, when you climb up into a window, the other team, you know, let's say you're on offense and you climb into the window to peek the defense, their aggro all focuses to you. Everyone looks at you. Your team is able to look at the enemies who have lost their sense of focus, and your team is maybe able to get a free pick or get a good initiation on the fight, while at the same time, you are able to get a free arrow or two off, because you can now, as of like a few updates ago, you can pull an arrow, climb up a wall, and shoot it. You don't have to pull an arrow again once you've gotten into the window. You have already pulled it when you were on the ground. These windows are broken because you essentially get free shots with little consequences. Occasionally you'll get hooked, but a lot of the time, if you're doing it right and you're playing around the hook, you're not going to get punished. These windows are a big part of how I approach Hanzo. And the windows aren't always necessarily, you know, the perfect definition of a widow, like on Eichenwald, this first choke. That entire area above the bridge is essentially a window. Use that to your advantage. Hanzo, and how I play him, always excels with the high ground, and obviously that can be said with just about anybody, but Hanzo more than the rest, I feel like, especially since scatter is a part of your inventory. To me, I always get better angles with scatter when I'm above people. It just helps me better hit those shots. But also, the fact that people are always having to look up and you're somewhat pulling their focus and their aggro is definitely a benefit. And that's what window theory kind of ties into, because you always have high ground with the windows, especially on choke points, because that's when it's the most important, and that's when there's always a high ground option available. You have to have the high ground, whether you're using a window or, you know, if it's maps on Temple of Anubis and you're playing defense. This is definitely an easier one to look at and say, duh, but yeah, stay on that high ground. The next point I'd like to get to is Pharah. We'll just call this point Pharah. So, as you Hanzo players know, whenever the other team picks Pharah into you, your teammates start asking you to go Soldier or McCree, and that's fine, because Soldier and McCree are definitely way better counters to Pharah than Hanzo. A lot of people would look at Pharah and say Pharah counters Hanzo, but I do not necessarily agree with that. And as someone who's put over 100 hours of Hanzo in competitive, I can safely say that Pharah doesn't counter Hanzo, but Hanzo counters Pharah. You have to be, some may call it luck, some may call it skill. It's a little bit of both in my opinion. If you are good enough at Hanzo, you will be able to take out a Pharah. It can get slightly difficult with the Pharah Mercy pocket constantly, and if the Mercy is doing an incredible job of always being on Pharah, then you can maybe start to think about going McCree. But there's almost always plenty of opportunities to kill a Pharah as Hanzo consistently. What I'm trying to get at here is, if you're a pretty good Hanzo, don't worry about switching when the other team picks Pharah. That just means, you know, they're scared of you. You're doing your job, and keep doing your job. And for those of you who are trying to become better at Hanzo, it comes with time. Being able to land shots on Pharah, just getting that natural feel of the trajectory, how you should be shooting versus her movement, because she moves in XYZ patterns, and you're going to have to somehow track in front of that and predict where she's going to move. It eventually just falls into place. You get a nice rhythm going. So it comes with time. Don't worry if you're having trouble with killing Pharahs right now as Hanzo. It comes with time. Just keep putting in the practice. So now I want to talk about a general rule with Hanzo. There are about a billion different types of play styles that anybody could have with any hero. And with Hanzo, some people like to flank. They like going off on their own a little bit. You would kind of look at Hanzo as another version of McCree when it comes to flanking. That is not how I approach Hanzo, and I'm not one to say certain playstyles are wrong, but that one is wrong. It should be incredibly rare when you flank as Hanzo. You should almost always be with your team. Hanzo is not a very fast moving hero. If he's next to a wall, that gives you a little bit of an advantage, but that's it. Hanzo is a hero where you're going to want to play with your tanks and healers. And now onto Hanzo's kit, specifically Sonic Arrow. Sonic Arrow, and I've been, changing my opinion on this, my stance, I guess I should say. I've been changing my stance on how you should use Sonic Arrow over the past couple months. Really ever since I started making these YouTube videos, every time some sort of Hanzo topic would come up, I used to say, put them where enemies would most likely be. Then I moved it to use it to find flankers. And then I found, I think, the perfect answer. And that is Sonic the places where your teammates can see the majority of people. Because I tend to forget that Sonic Arrow is a lot more important than just for my eyes. Sonic Arrow is really good for your team. And not everybody has your two eyes. You're seeing different things than your teammates. It's best to let Sonic Arrow highlight the most players possible. So essentially put Sonic Arrow in popular places. It could be just simply the choke of a point. That's typically where you'll see the other team the most and the most players. Sonic Arrow, I feel like, is more for your teammates than it is yourself. It's a huge ability because especially if you have people like a Roadhog on your team, that's when you can time hooks with people walking around a corner. It just insane with people that are getting ready to spam, Zenyatta charging an alt fire. Sonic Arrow is for your teammates, not yourself. Keep that in mind when you're playing him. So make sure you are highlighting areas that have the most amount of players. And so when it comes to your teammates picking, if you guys remember a long time ago when I made another Hanzo video, I said, get someone on your team to play Zarya. And that's still true, but I feel like the community has definitely shifted. People, tend to just pick what they want no matter what now. So if you guys remember a long time ago when I made another Hanzo video back when I was playing around 35-3600, I said one of the points was get someone on your team to play Zarya. That 100% still holds true to this day. But I do realize that it is a lot harder to get people to play certain heroes. Back in the day, before, toxicity was a big discussion piece, people were definitely playing and filling to what the team needed a lot more frequently. Now it's not as common, but if possible, still continue to get people to play Zarya on your team because you get free wins. Zarya ult plus Hanzo ult equals a free point. And I know people always want more from these videos. It doesn't matter how long I make them. People are always like, just give us more information how you play Hanzo. It would get to the point where I would have to go through every single map and talk about every single angle, and while that is possible, that doesn't really sound like a fun video for me to make, and I don't think a lot of people would care. That's getting to an incredibly small target audience. But listen, the main point of this video was to talk about window theory and high ground choke points. I need you guys to understand that if you want to play Hanzo in your games, Hanzo essentially gets boiled down to how many times can you exploit angles to get headshots and scatter arrows. That's literally all Hanzo is. We like to joke about the term simple geometry, but this is really all it's coming down to. Can you find good angles to get headshots? And the fact that it's Hanzo means a lot of one-shot kills. So all of this is my approach to Hanzo. This is what I'm thinking about in my games. This is how I approach the maps themselves. This is Nateson's Hanzo. Now remember, this is all from my experience and just everything I've done and how I've looked at it personally. None of this was manufactured from Reddit or other post and forum websites. This is all original. So I hope you guys were able to learn something new. Take care, everybody. See ya.
No!
Diva.
Another Weedamoose with the tier 1 sub!
We're good.
Thank you so much, man. There are so many subs coming.
Diva.
Wait, where am I? Did I get res? I thought I was walking back from spawn. I was just holding W and looking at the second monitor. Hold on, player list, Pingu. Dude, what is wrong with that scope? What the heck? That's like 2 foot long subs from Subway, dude. What in the world? I'm never playing freaking Roadhog again.
Yeah.
So bad. It's so bad. It's not even fun. I'm never playing Hog again, dude. Never. I'm telling you, I'm never playing Hog again.
Listen, one shot.
Never playing Hog again, chat. Don't let me do it.